Hey everyone, we're going to get started in just another minute. We'll hold off to let some of those who are still waiting to hop on. If you could go ahead and fill out this polling question we have here, and you're able to click more than one option. All right, so we'll go and get started here. For the first polling question we had on what issues employers are facing right now, it's no surprise to see that we have a lot of work from home fatigue and a lot of the issues people are facing here, the IT connectivity issues and uh, webinar fatigue, even though we're thankful to have you on today. And so for just real quick, my name is Dan Murphy. I'm the program manager for Georgia Commute Options. Georgia Commute Options is a program funded by the Georgia Department of Transportation and managed by the Atlanta Regional Commission. We offer incentives and services to employers, we do property managers and commuters to motivate people to try an alternative to driving alone, whether it's carpooling, van pooling, riding transit, and especially right now with teleworking. Next slide, please. So we've got a screenshot here of Zoom's user panel. Before I go into introducing the moderator, I'd like to just kind of go over a few housekeeping notes in terms of one, for the sake of presenters, we have muted all participants for the duration of the presentation. The webinar is recording and will be sent out in a follow-up email. And next, I'd like to call out the question and answer feature here on Zoom. If you have a question you'd like us to answer, please just drop them in there. And there's also a chat feature that we have, we'll be moderating as well. Next slide, please. And you can go and click through that one. All right, so GCO, we're super excited to have a solid group of presenters today who will be speaking on how their organizations were able to be flexible and adapt during the current COVID pandemic we've been facing. Our moderator for today is GCO's resident telework expert, Elham Shirazi. Elham is a FlexWork consultant with over 30 years of experience in developing telework and flexible scheduling programs and is recognized as a leader in the field. She has developed resource materials, conducted training workshops, and evaluated the impacts of telework and flexible scheduling for hundreds of organizations across the country and for many here in the Atlanta metro region. As I hand it off to you, Elham, we're going to do actually another pull-up. We're going to pull up another polling question so we're able to, again, gain some more insight about what attendees are expecting in the future. So we can go and pull up that polling question of what are your plans for the future of teleworking and flexibility at your workplace. And again, with this one, you're able to check all that apply.
Well, I guess the poll results are in. Hello, this is Elham. And as we can see that the most popular answer is allow some type of flexibility in the future, which is the most popular response, as well as modify in-office work hours as needed. And actually a good percentage are also saying allow full-time. So it looks like the future is definitely about flexibility, which brings us to the topic of today. We're very glad that we have three wonderful panelists today who are employers that we have been working with in finding, solutions and alternatives to coming to the office, obviously full time, but also, excuse me, managing their programs during this pandemic. Our first speaker is Livia Bicalo, and Livia is with WABTEC, and she's an HR professional who believes that collaboration, connectivity, and openness are great ways to boost results and have fun. And she currently works as a senior HR business partner at WABTEC, supporting the Digital Solutions Organization. And Livia has, a psychology degree and specialization in project and business. And she did get her MBA in 2018 and is also a certified coach. And she is currently concluding the Executive Business Analytics program at Harvard Business School. Our second speaker, whose picture you'll see later, is Cody Thigpen. And Cody is with the city of Woodstock, and she joined the city in January of 2020 as assistant city manager after leaving her post as city clerk in Sandy Springs. Previously, she also served as city clerk with City of Alpharetta and City of Canton. She completed her Master's of Public Administration degree with a concentration on local government administration from Kennesaw State University. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from the University of Georgia. Our third speaker, third but not least, is Caroline Evans, AICP. She founded Blue Cypress Consulting in 2014 with a vision of improving the community. She has more than 18 years of experience in community planning, including expertise in land use analysis, authoring planning documents, leveraging GIS, and conducting stakeholder and community outreach. Prior to founding Blue Cypress, Caroline was employed by a large architecture engineering firm, and she has a Master's of City Planning from Georgia Institute of Technology and a Bachelor of Science in Sociology with a minor in Urban Studies and GIS from Florida State University. As you can tell, we have very interesting speakers today. So I'm going to leave it up to Livia to take it away for the first presentation. Thank you, Livia.
Thank you, Ellen. And hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here with you today, sharing my experience in WABTEC, but also learning from you guys and from the questions. I think they are important for us to understand. So I want to start, just give you a background. What is WABTEC? What do we do, right? So it is a company that recently completed 150th anniversary. And pardon my English if it's not correct, but it's a lot, right? It's a very old company, very traditional. But it has a recent history of constant growth. And growth that they also achieved by doing many acquisitions. The biggest of all, the acquisitions was completed last year when WABTEC and GE Transportation were merged. And that's how I joined WABTEC. So I came with GE acquisition 2 years ago, I think, almost something like that. So the next slide, or the first slide actually, is telling what WABTEC does and where we are inserted, right? So we are in the transportation and logistics business. Our purpose, and you can go to the next slide. Yeah, our purpose is to help the customers to solve their toughest challenges, right? We are in, as I said, in an industry environment, but pretty much with logistics and transportation. Going to the next slide, I think we have more details of what Updeck does and where we are. So as I said before, we are in the rail or logistics. We work with transit and freight companies. We have solutions for other logistics players as well, like ports or trucks and even ships, right? We have today over 25,000 employees in over 100 countries. To add a little bit of more of the challenge here, keep in mind that in the last 10 years, Wabtec acquired more than 50 different companies. Most of them small, but also some big players there as Favelay in France and GE Transportation that was part of General Electric portfolio. And I'm bringing that information for you guys to understand how complex and diverse is our operations and our product lines. On the right side here of the slide, I try to illustrate the nature of our operations and facilities. So we have product manufacturing. We produce locomotives, engines. We have engineering solutions, services, and also digital technologies. All the softwares that can control operations, can control the locomotives and etc. Signaling for the railroad as well. And I'm currently supporting more the digital electronics side of the house. I'm based here in Atlanta, in our office here in Atlanta, in Buckhead. And again, in terms of facilities and locations, we have shop floors, we have offices, and we have people in the customer sides. And for sure, we have remote employees as well. So it's different. And I think the word flexibility applies perfectly here in our case. And so this is the background here. And I think we can also go to the next slide where I finally talk about COVID though. And this slide is to present how was our journey or how has been our journey with COVID, right? Many uncertainties, but it was important to assure to our employees that their safety was on top of our priorities. So all the communications is still today, we start to assure that everything that we are doing and thinking is to guarantee that we have their safety covered. Being part of the transportation industry, our activity is considered essential, which means that we can't stop, right? So we cannot just shut down everything and send everybody home. We keep operating to guarantee that logistics wouldn't stop, right? So all the purchase that we are doing today to get our things at home, we help to guarantee that we are not stopping that part of the activities. So we started like putting immediate actions in place. We learned from places where the situation arrived first, like in Italy. We have facilities in Italy, and they had a bad situation before arrive here in the US. So we were learning as they were going through it and trying to prepare ourselves for the same, but of course, we can't plan everything, right? But immediate actions like PPE, thermometers, masks, sanitizers, guarantee that we had all to the employees that were still going to the shop floors, but because they couldn't stop. At the same time, providing conditions for those that could go and work from home to do so, right? So that was the first actions, and I think we spent a month trying to respond to everything, and every day we had a call to talk about it, understand what was happening, and different actions that we had to take to attend and to guarantee the safety of our employees, at the same time not stopping our operations. So as we prolong the situation with COVID, we moved from only action to also reflect, right? And then we start to pulse our employees, ask them how they were feeling, what they need, learning together how to operate, right? Replacing a lot of activities that we used to do in person for virtual activities. Learning how to connect, how to collaborate. I saw the answers. Yeah, I think it's still a big place for us to occupy in terms of how we are collaborating with each other. That was also the moment that I got the help from the team here. Elham and Katie, they are fantastic, helped me to understand the scenario and what we could do different, analyzing the policies that we have, how to better assist our employees in their needs. And I believe that we are still in this mode, like learning as we go. We don't have a lot of answers. We are listening not only our employees, also our leaders, because they are overwhelmed because everything now is concentrated on them, right? When in office, we could have our colleagues, we could have even HR, but now it's pretty much our leaders that is serving as the point of contact to understand the word, like what is happening, what is the future, etc. So I say that we are still here, still in a constant follow-up. Many posts are still in place, and we connect with the employees. We increased the number of communications with them to guarantee that we are providing them the security they need for their jobs, right? But at the same time, we are starting, I don't know if late or not, planning the future. And so how it's going to work when everything is back to normal or the new normal. And we are learning that we need to think about working from home as a strategy, right? Many times in the past, we talked about that as a benefit or attending some specific situations. But now we are creating or putting in place some business cases to understand and to have working from home and as part of it, as part of the business case. So like cost with offices, how our offices has to be designed now. Cost with talents, right? In specific areas, we have talents more costly than others, so we need to think about that, but also access to good talents. They are spread out now. People are choosing where to live, so we can have access to more talents, and that is a base for our business case as well. And we need to transform our processes, right? And I said or shared with you before, Wabtec's a very traditional company coming from a lot of acquisitions, different processes, different needs. So how we think now in the future and how we adapt our processes again, being flexible enough, because I cannot just have one solution for everybody, right? So again, once again, one size doesn't fit all. And I think for our case here, thinking about the future is the same. Today, we are not equipped to onboard 100% of our resources, even though only considering those that can work from home. I'm not talking about here the shop floors, but we are not equipped to onboard everybody virtually today, right? The learning curve, the training, we are doing some of the onboarding, but again, we are learning, but not in quantity enough to say that we are stable with our process. we are struggling. We're struggling with tools to collaborate, right? So we are thinking about all those things as well as we move forward, thinking about the future, understanding the future will have a lot of flexibility in terms of part-time working from home or reducing the number of hours in the office, or even having the office only for very specific demands like collaboration events or specific meetings, but not for daily work. So those are the things that we are going through, or thoughts that we are going through right now. Um, I also like the word, many of the learnings that we need to consider as we plan the future. Those statements that you see here in the right side are things that are relevant and our employees and leaders brought to us. And I would add to the challenge that we are facing now, the fact that someone said, and I love it, is it's not that we are working from home, but we are living we are living at work, right? So that is changing how we interact with our work activities and how we take some time off. And this is getting very hard. Um, Employees are afraid to lose their jobs. They are afraid to not be connected enough. And because everything is different also, they don't know what to do with the time off, right? How to unplug from work. And that's being very, very hard. And we also need to include that in our process and in employee experience with us as well. So I hope that I shared or gave you guys a sample of what we are experiencing, what we are trying to do. And I hope to learn with you as well and have some insights.
Olivia, before you go away, can you also share your experience about opening the physical location
Oh, yeah.
for, yes.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And again, testing and learning, right? So we are complying with all the legislation from different states, and we want to reopen our offices, even though we don't have all the answers yet, as I said in the business case. But in states here in the US specifically where we could open the office, we did. However, we did in a reduced capacity. So here in Atlanta is the example, but Melbourne in Florida works the same way. Chicago works the same way. We reopened the office. Here specifically, we have space for 150 employees-ish. We opened, but only allowing 30 people to go at the same time. So you go online and you book your, it's a very friendly and easy tool that you find online. So you book your space to go that day. If reach the limit of 30, you cannot book a space for that specific day. And our experience, so we did that 1st of July. Yes, 1st of July. And so far, our experience is nobody's going. They don't want to go. And of course, it's voluntary. You don't need to go. So I think there is a message there as well, right? As in many of the surveys that we did, people, they want to be safe. They want to guarantee that they are safe to be back. Many of them will take public transportation. Many of them will take a lot of traffic to achieve or to get into the office. But the reality is the employees are not ready to go back in the normal way, I would say.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Now we're going to hear from the city of Woodstock. Cody, please take it away.
Hello, how are y'all? Good afternoon. I'm Cody Thigpen. I am the Assistant City Manager here in Woodstock. And I'll go ahead and take the next slide. So I put together a presentation about how we kind of evaluated and implemented the telework policy here in Woodstock. If you will go to the next slide. So just to start, a little bit about Woodstock. We are located in Metro Atlanta in Cherokee County. We have a population of just over 33,000. We provide full city services with a staff of 202 full-time staff and 7 part-time staff members. And I would say that Woodstock, if you've never been here, we are known for our vibrant downtown. And we have an extensive trail network, both running, walking trails, as well as mountain biking trails. And we have a thriving arts and cultural scene here. And then recently we attract a lot of visitors with our outlet shops that we have. So Woodstock is a great city. Next slide. So to be honest, pre-COVID, my attitude about teleworking was probably more that it was a private sector thing, not really something that would be conducive for local government. Given that many of the services that we provide are deemed essential, it just didn't make sense to me that we could go to a remote environment. And if we did, there would be so many unique circumstances that it would be really difficult for us to create a remote work environment. But then, excuse me, then enter COVID, and we were kind of forced to adjust like everyone else. So we had to kind of figure out a way to allow our employees to feel safe, and that required a lot of them to work from home. So we kind of started at a high level, and we allowed some kind of one-off remote work just through VPN licenses. So we had to make sure we had enough of those. And we first allowed staff to work remotely upon request for those who felt like they were in a medically fragile category or had other extenuating circumstances and they wanted to work from home. As COVID kind of got more impactful, we then required remote work for all non-essential employees. So we actually mandated that they work from home. And at the height of everything, we had about 60 employees that were working remotely full-time. So next slide. From an operational perspective, we had not previously contemplated a remote environment, so we had to make sure we had the right equipment. Again, like I said, we had the VPN licenses. We had to make sure we had enough of those. From a security perspective, we had to make sure that there were no network issues with people working from home. Some were working from city devices, some were working from personal devices, so we had to kind of manage that. We had to set guidelines and work agreements with remote workers. Again, being a local government, we kind of tend to operate, in the hours that we serve our citizens. So that's usually 8 to 5, and that sometimes a remote work environment can be a little flexible in hours, but we have to make sure that we are providing services within those core hours. So just having work agreements in place for remote workers to make sure we're able to adequately service our citizens. And then we also made a push to shift services to electronic where possible. And we really encourage people to use Zoom and Teams and do things, we have, obviously we do water bills and taxes and permits, and we have to hold court and all that. And those all have components that we were able to shift over to electronic, which was great to kind of minimize the impact of people having to come on site. Next slide. So what COVID showed us in our shift to a remote work environment is that as a local government, we found that we could maintain operations within a partial remote work environment. And we were very encouraged by this. Again, pre-COVID, I don't know that this is something that we would have pursued, but given that we were kind of forced to implement it, we were really pleased that we saw how it could work. And we really see it as a way to incentivize our workforce and to be a little bit more competitive with the private sector. We had some employees in particular that really enjoyed the flexibility to work remotely, and they were the same, and in many cases more productive from home than they can be in the office with distractions and other things that come up from being in the office environment. So from a retention perspective as well, we really saw that it was could be a neat tool for us to be able to utilize. So we were really excited about that. Next slide. So what we did, again, going back to being an essential industry, we had to kind of delicately balance people that would be eligible for remote work and others that might not be. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't have anybody feel left out because maybe their jobs weren't conducive to a remote environment. So thanks to Elham's guidance, we decided to put together a steering committee and get feedback from all the departments. For me, it was important to get feedback from the police and fire chiefs because obviously public safety is deemed essential. Their jobs are typically more difficult to incorporate into a remote work environment. It'd be kind of difficult for a police officer to telework. So we wanted to make sure that, if that pushback came back, why can't we do this? Why aren't we eligible? Those kind of conversations that the chiefs felt empowered and equipped to speak to that. We didn't want to create, a bad environment or have any sort of morale issues there. So we wanted to make sure we got buy-in from all the different departments. And there's others, we've got park maintenance technicians, they do maintenance on the parks, and we have water meter readers. Some of those roles just wouldn't work for remote work. So again, we wanted to make sure we tailored a plan that everyone knew that we took all that into consideration. So we had members of the steering committee, myself, our city manager, we have we have the fire chief, and I also pulled in some of the departments that I knew would have a higher number of employees wanting to take advantage of the telework policy, just to make sure they could carve out, anything that they wanted to make sure was included in the policy. So next slide. Our goals were to make sure that we absolve the city from liability. We didn't want to get into, different having to reimburse for insurance and tax write-offs and having to give them supplies above and beyond what they'd have in the office. We had to kind of work through workers' comp issues and make sure we were good there. So just, again, from a liability standpoint, making sure that we were covered. We wanted to set certain eligibility parameters. For us, it was important that an employee had to be here for 12 months to be eligible for the policy, to telework. We wanted to have an application and approval process to where the department director, the employee supervisor approved and it was involved in the process of approving that particular employee for telework. It was an integration between the employee, the department director, HR, and then myself. We wanted to make sure that we spelled out that the schedules and hours were agreed upon by both parties. And lastly, we wanted to, reemphasize to our employees that teleworking is not an entitlement. So, while we did want to offer it as a retention and incentive tool, if it is not to the best interest of the organization, that would be something that we would be able to pull back on if we needed to. Next slide. So we devised a policy with feedback from Daniel and Elham, and also from our steering committee. And we put together something that we felt really good about, and we presented it to the mayor and council, and they saw the value in it also, thankfully, and they unanimously approved that. So currently we have a few workers that are still working remotely, but most of our remote workers are all related to COVID or childcare. So we're waiting for the dust to kind of settle a little bit on the COVID before we roll out a more traditional telework plan. But once we're back in normal conditions, we do look forward to having our employees take advantage of the telework policy as part of their normal work schedule. So we're looking forward to that. And I will say also, we did get a little bit of pushback, not pushback, we got some questions from some of our stakeholders. Council members may have had a question about, I know one particular council member wanted to know if we were installing software on the employees' computers to make sure that they were being productive and things like that. And again, thanks to Elham and her feedback throughout the steering committee process, she was able to kind of walk through that with us and explain that, the policy, the telework is, if you're worried about the productivity of your employee, they may not be the right fit to take advantage of the teleworking policy. So just educating our stakeholders on that and kind of being prepared for certain feedback and just explaining that the program is not for everyone. There are certain people that will certainly qualify and thrive, but there are others that, may not even want to take advantage of it or just aren't a good fit. So I think the process was really thorough and thoughtful, and it really allowed us to be prepared to respond to all those different questions and scenarios. And next, I think that's my last slide. Next slide. Yes. So if anyone, I'm happy to answer any questions. There's my contact information. If anybody wants a copy of our policy or has any specific questions, I'm happy to share that.
Cody, thank you so much for that presentation. And I also want to encourage everyone to think of questions for our panelists and put them in the Q&A box as we're moving forward. And now we're going to ask Caroline to take it away. Please tell us about Blue Cypress Consulting.
Thank you, Elham, and thanks for having me. It's so interesting to have heard from a large private employer and a public sector employer, and now I'm going to give you the perspective of a small business owner. So this is really, you can go on to the next slide. I'm going to talk about how our small business reacted to COVID and kind of the way that we're looking at moving forward post-pandemic. So next slide. The first thing, a little bit about Blue Cypress. We are headquartered in Decatur, Georgia. We're a women-owned small business. I'm the owner, and we provide community planning, public outreach, GIS, and utility management services to mostly public sector clients as well as nonprofit and private clients. So we were formed in 2013 and have worked kind of throughout the United States, but are of course heavily focused in the metro Atlanta area. Next slide. Since 2013, when I founded the company, we've grown to a 12-person firm, and culture is really important to me. I'm so proud that we were nominated as a Great Places to Work for the Atlanta Business Chronicle this year in 2020. We didn't get to complete the process as our staff numbers dipped down just as the survey was released, but we went ahead and completed the survey internally and got some really great feedback about our culture, and that will come into play a little bit later in my presentation. But I do think that we got some interesting feedback because we did the survey as we were moving into working from home and the pandemic. So it was really interesting timing. So we started working 100% from home. I will never forget the date, on Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th. And at that time, we stopped all travel, including conferences, which we go to a lot of. And we set up a policy about not meeting in person. The working from home was not as much of a problem for us because we're consultants, and so we're kind of used to just picking up and working wherever. Everyone already had a laptop, and we just, we work in coffee shops, we work at our clients' offices, we work at our own office, we work from home sometimes anyway. But I think that, what really changed is that we were very concerned about the safety of our employees and wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of. We also asked that everyone set up a home office. We allowed them to take home their monitors and keyboards and that kind of thing so that they weren't typing and looking on a tiny keyboard and looking at a tiny monitor. And in a couple of instances where someone did not have a home office set up, we helped them purchase supplies to do that. Of course, we have a lot of flexibility to do that because we're a small staff. We also, I want to point out that we previously, prior to the pandemic, we do have one person on staff who lives in Charleston. So he I guess, is 100% teleworker all the time. And then we also have one of our staff who lives in Kennesaw. And if you know the metro area, you know that's very far away from Decatur. So she would come to the office, you know, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but I would call her about a 75% teleworker. And then our admin was also teleworking from home 1 day a week because that fit her schedule. But all of those were just, they were not set up as, you know, specific policies to the person. It was just kind of what I had worked out with them. So that was something that we were, you know, kind of reacting to and considering as well. I will also point out that we have added 4 staff during the pandemic. We had an internship program of 3 over the summer that was totally virtual, 2 of whom accepted ongoing positions. And we've also added a senior PM and another planner. So even during the pandemic, we've been growing to meet our project demands. And then finally, I am very sensitive to the fact that 9 of our 12 staff have children who, at the time that we all went virtual, they had to pivot to virtual school, and many of whom are now starting their fall year in virtual school, including 2 of my own. So that has its own challenges. So how did COVID-19 impact our staff? Well, we did not have any projects that were canceled. However, several were either delayed or had a reduced budget. Most of them are moving forward as scheduled, and many of them started with the new fiscal year of August 1st. So we're really busy right now. We do a lot of public outreach, and so all of that pivoted to virtual meetings. And so we've seen a heavy use of engagement platforms, as well as, you know, we've been learning a lot about other cool tools like Mural and Zoom and that kind of thing. We do really miss each other and our office. The top picture is a picture of our office, and the bottom picture is one of our Zoom calls, because we've been doing a lot of trying to connect online. So we do a weekly stand-up where we meet every Tuesday morning just to talk about kind of the week ahead or some other topic. We've been having virtual happy hours where we play a game. We started a professional development book club. So far, we've read Talking to Strangers, and we just started on Deep Work. We also were planning to do DISC training, which is kind of personality and team dynamics training. And I'm happy that we were able to move forward with that, even virtually, because I think that, you know, when you can't see each other in person, there's a lot of other dynamics that happen, and understanding how people function is really important. So since March, I feel like I've listened to approximately 1 million webinars on how to telework effectively, how to stay connected, how to support employees, and all of that. And I was lucky enough to see an ARC presentation about teleworking where Dan and Elham actually presented, and it contained the most information that I had seen about how to implement a program. So even though we were kind of doing this backwards, I signed up online. And, you know, I think that one thing that I've seen as our company has grown is that we're doing a lot of documentation of policies and procedures that are already in place, but that we need to put on paper. And so this was one more way in which we could document what was already happening. So I had a phone call almost immediately after my request with Anna and Elham. They shared a bunch of great materials. I shared what we were currently doing. And then they reviewed a markup for me of a policy, and then provided training for staff. And just like that, our teleworking policy was in place. So I said, you know, we did formalize our teleworking in response to the pandemic. So this is kind of backwards, but I'm really excited and proud of it, because I think it gives our staff a very clear policy, as well as setting us up for success to continue teleworking going forward. You know, one of the questions that I was asked to answer is, what will teleworking look like post-pandemic? You know, right now we are continuing to telework. children are going back to school, but much of that is virtual. And I mentioned how many working parents we have. I think that we love the building that our office is in, but it contains lots of small suites and is a 10-story building where no windows open. So we're just not comfortable being there right now. So I think that we will continue to telework until the COVID numbers substantially reduce because it's working for us. Also, I mentioned that Great Places to Work survey that we conducted, I believe it was in April. And in the survey response, every single person stated that they would like to continue to telework at least 1 to 2 times per week. I'm very supportive of this. I mentioned how we're growing even in the pandemic, and it's hard to think about taking on additional office space right now, but you know, we will need to make sure that we can get back together in person as that's allowable. And so I think utilizing a hoteling approach really makes sense when we return to the office. And then again, we're trying to be sensitive to the location of our employees because not everyone lives close to Decatur. So we would like to offer teleworking as a response to people's where they live throughout the metro region. So, you know, I think that the bottom line for me is that Georgia Commute Options really made it easy to create and share a teleworking policy, and then also to create an agreement template that everyone understands, every one of my staff understands will be put in place as we return to the office, and that'll be tailored to each employee's needs with their supervisor and with my final approval so that we can really tailor how we're approaching teleworking for each person. So thank you so much to Georgia Commute Options for having us and for helping us. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Should anyone have anything after this, there's my email.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And I really want to thank all of you for taking the time to, you know, think about the future and the current situation your employees are in. We're very lucky that we've been able to work with all 3 of you, very different experiences. And however, I guess the good news is that I think all 3 organizations are open to maintaining some level of teleworking, even in a post-COVID environment. And at this point, I'm gonna open it up for questions. And Ari, I think you may wanna take it away at this point.
Thank you so much, Elham. Dan had to hop off for a quick second, so I'm going to be pinch hitting for him. So as we wrap up the presentation today, before we head to the question and answer portion, I just wanted to highlight the resources available for the employers that are currently on the webinar today. As you can see here on your screen, you can visit us at gacommuteoptions.com, where you can access our Telework Quick Start Guide, which is for employers looking for a quick solution, still for business continuity. And then we recently developed a Finding Balance brochure for employers to manage the long-term realities of the COVID pandemic. You can also view this webinar as well as past webinars on the website as well. And coming up Tuesday, October 25th, we have Reimagining Work, Building Blocks for Your Telework program. That's taking place at 1 p.m. And then Thursday, August 27th at 1 p.m., we'll have How Regional Data Can Move Your Business Forward with Telework Policies. And I also wanted to let you guys know what our GCO telework services look like. In addition to resources available for employers, GCO also provides white glove services for offering customized telework policy guidance and training totally at no cost to you guys. And we can also assist with IT, pilot programming, and full implementations. And with that, you can contact us at info@gacommuteoptions.com, or you can give us a call at 877-942-6784. And I think we can go ahead and head into the question and answer portion. We have one I see already as you guys are getting your questions ready. I see one in the chat here. It says, the public has been very accepting of teleworking of their government workers during COVID. And I know we've proven that we can be at least as productive at nearly 100% teleworking. Do you expect, once the pandemic is over, a return to the thought that government employees aren't trustworthy or capable of working from home? You know, the, in quotation marks, lazy government employee stereotype. And I think that might be for Cody, or maybe Elham, you can expound on that a little bit.
I'm happy to respond to that. I think I sure hope not. I think I don't want to say that we bought into the lazy government employee stereotype, but I think we were very pleasantly surprised at the level of productivity we were able to get out of our remote workers, those that were teleworking. So I know internally, no, we won't uphold that, but I think externally, we've gotten really great feedback from our citizens, and I think going forward, there are some takeaways that we'll permanently implement. We've had different open houses that we've had to host to get public input on different projects, and we've done those virtually and gotten really good participation because of that virtual option. And we thought, well, why have we not been doing this before? We have Zoomed our city council meetings and had public participation that way. And I think we'll permanently try to implement some form of virtual participation in those. So I think for us, we've got people submitting permits and needing plan review and things like that, and we have been able to move that all electronically, which our outside customers appreciate. So I think if anything, we have seen where we have been able to be more productive, and our customers and our citizens have really appreciated that. And I think we've kind of upped our game a little bit, so to say. So I'm hoping that maybe we can bust through that stereotype. We're certainly doing our part here.
Thank you for that, Cody. We have another question here. It says, I think some of you guys may have touched on this just a little bit, but did you make any major changes to the technology in terms of equipping employees or introducing any new software and platforms during this time? And that can be for anybody that wants to answer.
Livia, did you make any changes in terms of what people had in terms of technology?
I wouldn't say that we did a lot of change, but for sure, I think the usage of Teams, that's what we use here, and especially the video calls increased a lot. And some softwares there, as mentioned before, like Miro or Workboard, I think we are expanding the usage. So no big change, but for sure, we are trying to incentivize more the use of it.
Great. And Cody, did you make any changes?
We did not. No, for the most part, people either took their equipment they were using in the office and brought it home and set up. We had enough VPN licenses to facilitate that for everyone at home. So we did buy, since the height of COVID, now most people are back to work, we have since bought a few loaner laptops and some Surface Pros to loan out if we do have to end up going back to that for whatever reason. So we have some more equipment on hand, but that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that we bought equipment wise.
Great. And Caroline, I think you said that you already were laptop based, right? Did you have to add anything?
Not really as far as equipment goes. I mentioned that we let everybody take home their monitors and kind of their desk set up so that they could be more efficient. I do think that the response as far as software goes for the collaboration software and the level of innovation that has happened in response to the pandemic has been so interesting to follow and try to stay abreast of, especially as we try to serve our clients. I know that everybody is more well-versed in Teams and Zoom now than they ever thought they would be. And all of that, I think, is just really interesting, like Cody said, about being able to gather more input from public meetings and hear from more people, and get higher levels of participation. That part has been really exciting for us.
Great.
Thank you
All
so
right, I think we have
much.
some more questions.
We do. The next one we have is, what are you guys doing for employees that hate working from home?
Well, Livia here, of course, but I don't have the experience with someone telling me that I hate work from home. So I do have some folks feeling or missing being together, right? So it was interesting, for an example, when we reopened the Atlanta office, and some employees said, well, we are going to book our time, and their colleagues were doing the same. So we said, okay, you can come, but you cannot sit together. You have to like social distance, right? And immediately they said, oh, so we are not going then. So, so it was interesting to watch that. But I don't have anyone coming to me and say that hate works from home.
Yeah, this is Cody. We didn't have anyone either that just absolutely hated working from home. We certainly have some people, and I'm included in that group, that prefer to work at the office. And so, we've I think we have some people that are just, like being in the office environment, or maybe we have some social butterflies and things like that kind of feel like they flourish more in the office. And we've just encouraged supervisors to work with their people. I mean, they know their employees best and kind of what incentivizes and motivates them. So maybe for one employee, that might be a daily check-in call just to kind of feel connected, or some other team building, activity or something, just to make sure that they feel like they have been included. But we've been able to manage it through things like that.
Awesome. We have one more question here. It says, please discuss some ways to unplug from work. And that can go to any of our panelists and to you as well, Elham.
I just want Susan Jenkins, please attend next Tuesday's webinar, because we will be talking more extensively about that. And I know we only have a minute, so I'm going to let any of the panelists, if they want to add anything to, how do you encourage your employees to unplug?
Well, this is Caroline. We've been really encouraging people to go ahead and take a day or two of PTO, even if they're just staying in their home or going out into nature and not going anywhere. I think it's really important for mental health, because, over the course of 5 months, if you weren't sheltering in place, you probably would be taking PTO. And I feel like most of our employees have taken us up on that strong suggestion, and that it really does help with the mental health.
Yeah, if I could add just the leadership example, I think that's crucial to have that work, right? So when someone, first of all, leaders also take time off and respect your time off. Don't work during your time off. Request your team to do the same and respect their time, right? I think it's not easy. Again, a lot of fear, but example is helping.
Alrighty. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our panelists for joining us today. As always, thank you, Elham. And before we hop off, just want to remind you guys that you're going to get a survey link once we exit this webinar. If you could take a few minutes to fill that out and give us some feedback, that'd be great. Until next time, thank you guys so much, and thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.